When a foreign invasion approached China in 1861, the people did not bend their heads and continued to practice wushu techniques. So a new warrior emerged. A man in a black suit is apprehended in the caverns, and just as they are ready to execute him, warriors in black intervene. A massive battle follows, with the warriors in black fighting fearlessly. General James, a man renowned for his courage and ability, is one of them. For freeing the prince from the fortress, he promises to make him governor. James wishes to promote Wilder, his wife's brother, to the position of governor, but the prince disapproves and threatens to expel Wilder if James refuses. But James isn't interested in that. Instead, he wants to learn wushu and pass it on to everyone, since he thinks Wilder will undoubtedly get the governorship if he does. James departs in the morning. After 5 years, Wilder wants to pay a visit to James and his family, who live happily together as James studies martial arts. His sister welcomes him and introduces him to his kid Feng. He doesn't trust his father's claims about being bored since he has come for a fight. When Wilder learns that the older man murdered his real father because he was skilled in a deadly technique, he kills him for lying. Louisa observes everything and makes an attempt to flee with Feng, but the guards drag her to Wilder. He intends to keep shedding blood. When James learns of his father's death, he rushes to the location. But all that is there are dead people. Daggers start flying into his back one by one. But he dodges them, takes his sword, and fights the female who throws them. She is a skilled warrior, but James is not afraid to fight back. She is joined by a second black-suited warrior and attacks James. Their swords hit with the outhouse where they are fighting. Wilder, white as Nosferatu, is about to make a tribute to his father, but James arrives on the scene and scatters all the soldiers. James wants to take his father's revenge. The two wushu masters battle along the river, but James realizes that his sword is ineffective. Wilder takes off his clothes, revealing the armor woven onto his flesh. The combat begins without swords, and James demonstrates great talent, but Wilder has a secret in mind for the occasion. The 5 poisonous fist technique, which only results in death. Now he's just like his father. Although James is defeated, Wilder chooses to spare him and throws him into the river. Louisa leaps after him because she can't stand to lose him. They suddenly find themselves in the river, but James is still unconscious. He is placed on a stretcher and carried up the mountain by his loves. Because she has been carrying him for such a long time, her entire body is covered in blood. At one point, he nearly fell down the mountain, but Dr. Annie saved them. James wakes up at her mountaintop house. He and Louisa have managed to work together. James's wife makes fine wine, which Annie distributes for free in town, along with medicine for the poor. Even though it is nearly impossible for someone to endure such poisons, he manages to survive the poisonous fists. Due to torn tendons, his right arm is paralyzed. James is in despair since he is unable to even grasp a cup of rice. He suffers and pounces on wine. In Annie's home, they remain with the 3 of them. After a long time, he still doesn't come to his senses and gets drunk. Louisa says that despite her repeated requests, he refuses to act like himself until it finally hits him. James begins working on his technique day by day, rebuilding his power, but at one time, he witnesses 2 older men using levitation to go through the air. They take him to a location that resembles a temple, but he feels as though he is dreaming. The older man in the dark claims that James must defeat the god Wushu. The issue is that while his arm has become stronger, his faith has weakened. Even though the Wushu god defeats James, he returns there shortly after. As they continue to fight while holding staffs, the Wushu god eventually knocks James to the ground. And so the days of James pass. A constant fight with the Wushu god to reclaim his faith and come home hurt and damaged. Contrary to his mental state, his physical health is improving throughout this time. Who is this god of Wushu? Is he actually there? He's crazy, Annie claims. After a year has passed, Louisa decides to check out James' training but finds it empty and witnesses him smashing vases on himself and conversing with the gods. She informs her husband, but it makes no difference to him. Real or not, he must grow stronger the way he loves to reclaim his family, to see his son again. It becomes worse, and she gets drunk on wine, talking to the wind, longing to talk to her son in her heart, and James joins her. James keeps up his battles, grows stronger, and makes significant progress. God says James' trust in himself has returned, indicating that he is strong enough. But James understands that these are made-up characters, and their training is done. At home, there is a note from Louisa, stating that she is going for her son. Louisa does arrive to get her kid, but Wilder doesn't intend to bring him home. While this is happening, James is already bursting inside the palace and fighting the guards. He's as powerful and agile as ever. While James makes his way through the lines of the guards, Wilder gives the order to bury Louisa in the woods. Louisa is put into a box and buried underground, and Wilder kills the only guards who know where she is. James finally takes out Wilder's 2 bodyguards and begins to fight the man he once thought was his brother. He attacks James with his typical poisonous fist technique, but James is more powerful than ever and won't even allow him to get close to him. James drags Wilder into a well with deadly snakes at the bottom and continues to strike Wilder, tearing off pieces of the armor sewed to his body. James puts an iron chain around his hand, putting him on an equal footing with Wilder. He rips the armor from his flesh and knocks him unconscious, maybe for the final time. His son persuades him not to hurt Wilder because they have no idea where Lewis is buried. James dashes into the woods and, thanks to the rain, discovers a chest containing his wife, but he doesn't have time to get her out. She is no longer alive, and no one can bring her back.